everyone, I hope you're doing well. The purpose of this video is to show you how to write an essay in 5 easy steps. So please have a pen and paper, pencil, paper, so you can take some notes as we go along. One of my objectives as an instructor is to teach content as easily as possible, and the reason for that is because I've had professors who tend to complicate subjects a little too much, and it just doesn't work out well for the students. So this video is designed to be pretty straightforward, hopefully pretty easy for you to follow. So let's get started. A friendly reminder that the purpose of writing an argumentative essay is to convince your audience. You want your audience to agree with your stance or your thesis, your claim. Your stance also has to be stated clearly and logically, and we will talk about that briefly. You also have to support your stance with credible evidence. Credible is a key word. You can't just go to the internet and find .coms to support your evidence. You have to be credible sources. You also need to acknowledge opposing points of view. We talked about this last week, the fact that that is critical. That makes it really an argumentative essay. And then, of course, you have to respond to your critics, to those who have an opposing point of view as yours, to show that your stance is still superior and theirs needs some work. So the first step to writing an argumentative essay is make sure you conduct background research. And by this, we're talking about research that is on the internet. It's just for you to understand the issue. You have to be able to understand the controversies. What is it that is controversial about this particular topic? As you conduct background research, you will likely identify counter arguments, so that's another good reason to conduct the background research. And then hopefully as you do your research, you should be able to identify a refutation if you don't have one yourself in regards to how to respond to this particular argument. Step number 2, answer the prompt. We talked about this last week. Make sure that you simply answer the question. What is it that you're being asked in the assignment? Now, make sure that you answer it. Going back to what is a burrito, your thesis statement, simply answer that question. So likewise, for your argumentative essay, look at the question, look at the prompt, see what it is that you're being asked, and answer it. Make sure that you take a stance. In other words, you answer it clearly. There is no questioning whether you're actually making a stance, making your opinion clear. And that ties to the next point. Your opinion has to be clearly stated. In other words, there's no middle ground. For example, don't say, well, a burrito I think is this, or I think it's that. No, you have to clearly state what it is that you're trying to argue. You have to choose one side or the other. There is no middle ground. That is what makes it an argumentative essay. And of course, you have to be logical in the points that you address to support your thesis or your claim. Moving on to step number 3. At this point, you are ready to conduct credible and formal research. And by formal, we mean you are going to conduct research from your school databases. That's why you get paid, or why the schools pay a lot of money for the different databases that you can access directly from the libraries. So that's where you come in. Doing so makes your stance stronger. It strengthens your opinion because now it's not just your opinion, but it's your opinion supported by that of experts. So you find expert opinions, expert advice on the topic. Again, I emphasize the fact that you have to use credible sources. We will talk about that in a different presentation in the next week. And of course, you have to rely on professionals. Why? Because you are not an expert on the subject that you are writing about. You are trying to become an expert, but you are students. You are not an expert in any kind of formal way. That's why you need to rely on those who are. And it's possible that you might do some firsthand research. You could interview somebody that has information related to your topic. That is something that some students do. It's not very often that is done at the undergraduate level, but it's certainly something that you could consider. Let's move on to the next step, which is the 4th step. The 4th step is you have to develop a cluster. This is an optional step, that's why it doesn't have a number. And I will show you how to do clusters in the next presentation. But clusters are an excellent way for you to be able to structure your essay, outline it, if you will. but in a visual way that's a little less confusing sometimes for students who are not sure as to, or who don't fully understand how to do an outline. Clusters can be very helpful pre-writing strategies. They can help you identify your major points of support, which is your evidence that you'll be using in your essay. They can identify your subpoints, which are the points of support, the major points of support. And of course, in your cluster, you should develop a counterargument. You can also refute the counterargument in the cluster. So clusters, I advocate that you use a cluster if you're not familiar with how to do formal outlines. But if you know how to do formal outlines, you can completely bypass this step, which takes us to the next, the fourth step, which is the development of an outline. We talked about the fact that you need to engage in the 3 different stages of the writing process. So at this point, we are still in the pre-writing stage. We've conducted our research. Now we are ready to move on and start outlining our essay. Outlines are excellent because they tell you exactly how your essay is going to look, what paragraphs are going to have what content and in what order, which is exactly what I have here in this particular outline, which is posted on the website. But as you can see, the outline is pretty logical. It states your thesis. And then this is not a complete outline. It's only the first page because on PowerPoint, you can't put both pages on there. But it outlines exactly what the paragraphs will contain and in what order. Then we move on to the last step is, of course, writing the actual essay. Make sure that you follow the appropriate citation format. In this case, we are using MLA format, so cite following those guidelines. Cite as you write. Remember that if you don't cite, you are committing plagiarism, which will give you an F, and you don't want to get an F in the class or in the assignment. Make sure that as you write, you use appropriate transitions because every essay has different transitions. Likewise, the argumentative essay has specific transitions that you should use. As you write, follow your outline. Make sure that your outline is followed in the right order. Sometimes students switch up the order of the paragraphs. For example, let's say that we talk about what is a burrito and they talk about the carbs, the protein, and the vegetables and how that makes it a complete meal. They might switch the order of the paragraphs. They might first talk about vegetables when that's the third point that they referenced. So make sure that you always go back to your thesis and make sure that the order of paragraphs matches the order that you presented in your thesis statement. Always revise. You can never revise too much. If you have a friend or a significant other, somebody who can take a look at your paper and help you revise it, edit it, that's always an excellent way to get a good grade. And then finally, revise more. Even when you think you are done, you probably are not. So you can just continue revising until you have a perfect paper. So those are the 5 steps to writing an essay. I hope you find it pretty easy to follow. If not, always send me, email me with questions. Until next time, bye.